every athlete, every person, every human being has an opportunity. Some opportunities don't come when you want them. But if you're prepared, good opportunities can happen. Always be ready, because you never know when your number is gonna get called.
I'm not coming back.
Emmy Apparel. Encourage me. I'm young.
Calvin T. Mann, leading Emmy, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to EMIYTV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
Well, good afternoon. It's a difficult responsibility. Yes. Welcome to EMIYTV Put Your Family First podcast. We popping today's off topic is politics of self. Of course, this is something the brilliant Dr. Heather Rue came up with.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
It's a compliment to my article for this month for Detroit Native Sun News.
Yeah, so you have to change the title, Monique. It is now Dr. Heather Rue.
All right.
All right. And Dr. Calvin T. Mann.
All right. Well, okay.
Right. So, getting into the groove of this, right, this conversation, for me, it's, the politics itself. I'm caught up in the regular politics. I know a little bit more than what I should. I've been absorbed in it. I've got pulled into it. And anytime, I want to make this clear to anybody in the world so they can understand where I stand. This is just me. If it looks like me, I'm supporting it.
That's a pretty interesting and blanket statement to make, because some things you have to be.
I get that.
Right.
I'm just saying, in this moment, in this time, in this position, for this seat in the White House, right, compared to what they are offering. The society is offering something that looks like me. We have a society that decided that what the new black is, right? Black has to be this or black has to be that, and half this country is mixed, right? I'm beige myself. If you can see, I'm caramel, right? I like to stick to the caramel.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm the caramel. But my great-grandfather could pass. My grandfather on my daddy's side could pass. And we talking real pass. Lily. We talking Lillian White. My family is mixed, right? So anybody that's out there going through this process of buying into this foolishness, like, I just couldn't do it. I just wanted to get that off my chest. So, Miss Heather, so we can get into your conversation.
Right. But that actually is part of the conversation of self, the politics of self. And as we talk about our values, our beliefs, and where they come from and how they're reflected in our behavior, that's really a lot, and it's defining of politics. So when I talk about politics, I'm talking about policy, I'm talking about power, and I think it's important that, to frame this whole conversation and to look really through that lens. Mm-hmm. And as we kind of go through this process, I don't want people to think that this is about a political party or picking sides because of one reason or another. What the politics of self is about is what are your individual motivations? Where did it come from? How is it impacted? Because we tend to give our power over to politicians. And when we understand the role that they play and the role that we play, we can reclaim our personal power, our sense of identity, and our sense of self. And I think that's really important. That's why I wanted to have this conversation.
Okay, well, identify, Dr. Mann.
Well, I kind of wanted to start with some numbers. When I looked up and tried to pull research around how many elected officials do we have in federal, state, and local governments, the number I came up with is it's estimated, I should say, at 520,000 in the U.S. So that's all types of boards, like your city council, that is like your school board. I'm talking about all of those. Your who you go before for the liquor license, like all of those types of people. And that is the number of people who we hold the trust to. So that's, again, that number is about 520,000. There are over 332 million people in the United States. And so when you look and compare those numbers, the whole point was that you would have a small demographic of people who are your action arms of how you navigate the Constitution.
Okay.
And I think that what a lot of people don't understand is that when we talk about when we're breaking the law, what does that mean? The Constitution was set up to govern our behavior and our conduct. What we consider law, what we consider legal, what we consider just, and how that's carried out is kind of how it's carried out, updated over time, expanded, is carried out in our states, the individual states. It's also carried out in the federal. So the federal and the state have the biggest impact, and then you go to our local governments, and they have the local jurisdictions of what happens within those communities. But it's the people. It's those 332 million people who actually apply, enforce, and agree to the behavior of whatever is decided by the officials, those elected officials.
Okay.
And so I want to empower people to understand that it even may be a law, but you still choose to follow that or not. We know that there are consequences on both sides, and it's not a perfect system because it was definitely drafted by a great number of imperfect people. And I'm always moved when I read the preamble to the Constitution, like the intention of the Constitution. And it starts off, we the people. And we give our power away every time we think it's somebody else's responsibility. So when I'm talking about the politics of self, I'm talking about how do you self-govern? What authority are you giving yourself to be able to get along, to be able to express your values? What are those values? And how are those values played out with yourself, within your family, and the areas that you govern? And one of the things I like about your conversation with fatherhood, Calvin, is that you say that when a father steps out on his porch, he really is to govern as far as he can see right and as far as he can see left.
Yeah.
That mindset, and when that mindset is fully adopted and fully practiced, it's going to be a different community.
Well, yeah. And so when you look at it from that standpoint and that lens, see, you're looking at things from a changed lens. And so the politics of self, it's people have to begin to understand that how you govern yourself literally establishes a government, right?
Absolutely.
And so when people, like, and what you're saying, that was what, the whole thing was supposed to be about, right? But we've had the system of people run amok, right? And we've run amok in these areas where now values and character has been tarnished. Where what is values and character when money is at the table? It's a different process. It looks like we have a caller. Caller, you're on the air.
It's probably spam.
Okay. So that's when we're talking politics of self and self-govern and how we, right, this is a huge piece of enlightenment for a lot of people. And so you're going to have to really, because people don't understand the power that they have to self-govern. Right? When you're a victim, is Monique's fault, is Heather's fault. When you're a victim, you say they a lot. When you're a leader, you say we a lot.
That's true. I like that. That's a great insight.
Right? Victims have very little information. It is always dictated to them because this society has decided that reading is not life. We decided, right, that we're not going to pick up. Reading is life, but we're not picking up more information. So everything dictates to us. Remember, I was telling you we was in the basement years ago, and Clarence kept playing, all these videos, and all these videos it was talking about the world is coming to an end. The people were in the basement. We got all these things, and so I was like, that's a dangerous precedent because they're dictating to you how to respond. So you're responding in a way that is, in fear. This is why, people say things in fear. But when you govern yourself, you don't have time for that, especially as a man with a family. Like, I'm trying to govern the legacy, and like for you to come saying, well, what you threatening, what you gonna do, man, ain't nobody, this society gets into, right, we don't have time for that, right? We gotta make sure that the kids can read and the kids can become adults and be productive members in the society and continue to innovate and be creative. Right? That's what we're supposed to do. But like I was sharing with you this morning, we decided that, in all these individual processes is all this creativity that is given away because we don't read or understand or gather or protect the innovation.
And that also feeds into you don't know the laws. You don't know the laws that govern. And so I challenge our listeners today. First thing I want you to do is just read the preamble to the Constitution. Every time I read it, and I get the intent behind it. And I think it's so moving. It's so moving and it's so iconic. And I want to believe that the preamble to the Constitution, the intention behind the Constitution, this introduction of what it was designed to do, is real. I want to believe that. I want to do my part to help to bring that truth to life.
Well, you do your part. That's what I'm saying, right? And so that's why the politics itself is your topic today, because you do your part. You made sure that you've taught your son how to vote. He's gone with you. He's learned to vote. You're doing your part. Like, you're not bringing in conspiracy theories. You're not saying, I've not even heard you really go off on 45. Like, you go in and you make a process toward the information that you have gathered, right? Is this policy good for the community? You understand the levels of government, which is where a major part of flaws is not understanding the levels of government. So the only thing that you'll be in uproar is about the presidential, but then you don't vote in, for the senators, you don't vote the halfway point, you don't. So your non-participation, I was hearing this with somebody the other day. It's like, I've been voting since I was 18. I couldn't wait to vote, right?
Yes, for sure.
So now you telling me that somebody is going to tell me not to vote. Like, man, if you don't know what we went through to even how to vote, and if he'd got another 4 years, you wouldn't even be voting right now. So, and that was an attack on your voting rights. And so to me, when somebody said, hey, man, hold your vote. And man, if you don't beat it with that, like, I vote because I know how important the vote is.
And the other part of that, though, is our community has to reestablish a voting record and history. Because if you are not, and I forgot the term for it, if you're not a regular voter, there's a term for it, and it just escaped me again, but you have to be a regular voter. You can't be a sometime voter, because the priority for regular voters is different from the priority from sometime voters. Or I'm only voting when, or I'm holding my vote, those types of people. And if you're not voting tomorrow, if you're not voting and then you don't vote in November, these are critical moments. It is setting up a record. There is a record. There is an accounting of your voting record.
Yeah.
And so it's important that you either establish or reestablish yourself as a self-governing citizen of this country, being 18 and older, and that you have the lens, just like we talked about the responsibility of fatherhood, is to be able to govern what's to your right or the left of the space that you live. If you don't have that mindset, this is the time to develop it. This is the time to develop your voting history, your voting record. So if you are not registered, that's the first step. But again, I don't want to get too far into the politics of politics. I want to stay in this zone of what are we governing? What is our part? How are we as individuals, how are we practicing these things and teaching these things in the spaces that we occupy?
You have to know the strength. You have to know what that means, right? You have to understand a voting record also is something that people review and will hold it against you, right? Because every little thing, all ingredients count, right? Mm-hmm. Every little thing that we are looking for to hold you back from, you're participating in it. I don't have to give you, you don't show no value to the United States, to the Constitution, to the people, to anything that you're trying to attempt. So voting is very important. It's just like taxes, right? No matter what the case may be, doing taxes is part of your record in this country. Now, in that process, in the same process, when you don't do these things, you're showing that you don't value self. These are things that come with being an adult.
Yes.
It automatically comes with you being an adult. Do you have the priority of registering to vote? Yes, I'm registered to vote.
Is that what's called priority voters?
Yeah, it could be, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so then how do you put yourself in position? It's not a strange thing, right? Which is weird. This is the part about racism that drives me crazy. It's not strange that they be jumping in them rooms to vote. While you sitting back talking about don't vote, they jumping in them rooms to vote. And I was explaining to somebody that you have to become a lobbyist for your culture. These are the rules, right? You have to know what this vote means and how much money is at the table for business and how much is at the table for family and how much is. You have to know these things in order to share proper information with the culture and the people, right? Which goes into the politics of self. So me, myself, and you yourself understanding why voting and those things and these processes are so important.
And also understanding where it's coming from.
Yeah.
That is, these things are the Constitution. When they're passing bills, it is to be an addition to, an amendment to the things that have already been established. And that constantly happens on a federal and a state level, and a local level. So when we talk about, when you have an opportunity to bring a grievance to city council, that your grievance is a part of public record. That means that it's a platform, and if it's concerned, if that concern comes up enough, if the support for that comes up enough, then you have the power to exercise your reasons why, and to construct a guideline around it, a process around it, we can't pass the law, but we can also give them the tools and the information that we like to see put in those bills, put in those amendments, and what then becomes a law. And if here's one for you. If you grew up like we did in the 70s, 80s, Schoolhouse Rock has a whole segment on how the government is set up. And I love Schoolhouse Rock.
Yeah.
I still love Schoolhouse Rock. A lot of those teachings, and it's set to music, and it was set to connect you to the process.
Yeah, but it's exactly what I'm explaining even to you now. So it was dictated to you how many people went. See, because we had to have research, right? Mm-hmm. So since the No Child Left Behind Act, education took a huge nosedive, right? And then when we talk about education, they held an education town hall.
Who's they?
42 Forward.
Okay.
With at Mary Grove.
Is it 40 or 8?
42 Forward.
It's 42 Forward?
Yeah.
With 8 in there. Okay.
Yeah. So when in that town hall.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Right. Mm-hmm. We learned. So they had. Now here's how they can tell. Right.
In the state of Michigan.
In the state of Michigan. Right. Here's how they can tell how you value education and how you value getting an education, the whole nine. So here's the education town hall. In the room where the room should have been packed, it wasn't. And in the room, they talked about how much of the money that they have secured. Legislators have secured. And it's almost $1 billion going into the educational for those of the least served, right? So it was $900 and some odd million, almost $1 billion. You can just cut on, and people have no clue how much money was going in for their kids. This is all over the state, right? And this is for kids who are struggling in this area, so they put money in there to enhance. Now, what is the biggest issue? You're going to find the politics itself. Back to her statement, you will find that there, as we discover, there's a lot of considerable parental involvement in the children's lives. We're letting everything dictate us. We got enough dispensaries. We're involved in there. We know everything about when the dispensary is going to give out the free weed. It'd be a line outside of the dispensary, right? But when it's time, right, only certain schools understand parent-teacher involvement, parent-teacher conference, and the parents that's going to come, right? So, again, politics itself, what are you governing if you are always counting or presenting yourself to they and not taking care of we? And that's a big disconnect in this conversation, right? Because it's important for us to understand that, as you say, we the people. So we the people mean we the people in the home, my children.
We're the people on the block.
Yeah, we the people on the block, making sure that we all get along, right? Cut off that emotion. The biggest issue that you all are facing, right, in America, is emotional males with guns and emotional females with action, right? We are seeing constantly girls fighting, dying at the hands. We've seen it in Alabama. We've seen it in Atlanta. We're constantly seeing emotion at play. So there's no policing, governing the we. You have a high level of what do we call? I can do anything I want to do. People, right? I could do whatever I want to do. Right? So when you have that mentality, I can do whatever I want to do mentality, nothing is going to get done. So then now I revert back to victimhood and I point my finger. Right? They think they something. They got a new house. They got a new car. Oh, look, they just brought in a TV. So what do? They begin to infiltrate your property to take something that you've earned and bought, right? So there's no governance. So the politics itself means the biggest flaw right now is governance.
Right.
Self-governance.
Self-governance
is the biggest flaw right now in poverty-stricken communities, in racist communities, and divided communities.
Divided, for sure.
Right? The biggest problem is self-governance, and we are at a place where we will say, oh, look at them. See, this is what you've been dictated to because the news dictates your violence, but Dateline dictates the murder rate. And the murder rates that we have, if we really put down the murder rates, you're not murdering as much as white people, but that doesn't matter in the cause because what happens is murder is now acceptable culture, which means we're still, the governance of self is poor in America.
It is. It is. We have somewhere we've dropped the ball on how we resolve our conflicts and how we resolve our differences, and that is reflective of our value systems. So if violence is the only solution being put on the table, I mean it turns into the Wild Wild West. It turns into, we're going to duel back and forth, and that's how we're going to resolve this conflict. Well, you have a gun, I have a gun. We're going to take 3 steps and then turn around and shoot. And whoever is left is the winner. There is no winner.
There's no winner.
There is no winner in the conditions that we're facing now. And we have to look at, what are we doing? What are we teaching? How are we behaving? And I know it seems like if everybody else has a gun and you don't have one, you need to have one because the chances of everybody putting those guns down is smaller than it is for you to actually have one in your hand.
Well, yeah, I think everybody does have one. I think that the gun manufacturers have succeeded.
Exceeded
their expectation because of right? If you lobby for ignorance, you produce No Child Left Behind Act. If you're lobbying for racism, you ban books. If you're lobbying for poverty, right, you increase it by taking jobs and selling companies and moving it, and then say, hey, we're in America, we're still. And then when you do the research, you find that a lot of American entities are owned by foreign people.
Yes.
So we sold
even
you.
our properties.
Even your property. So then we've sold you. We've sold America to you while we are not even really here. And
some don't have the right to sell. Don't have the right to sell the things in this country. You don't have the right to sell it because it wasn't yours from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother conversation. But I do want to kind of share a little bit more of my numbers today so we can see, because I actually broke the numbers down for Michigan as well. So the state of Michigan, and these numbers it's based on a good source, but some of them, may not be reflective of 2024. So the state of Michigan, and I think this was as of 2022, has estimated 10,077,331 people. And we have the 10th largest populated space in the U.S. And, and so one of the things that struck me in that understanding of the state of Michigan, let me also say that for the state of Michigan, 40% of it is underwater. 40% of the state of Michigan is underwater, which I thought was really interesting because they include that as part of the state, the boundaries of the state. So, but 40% of it being underwater, we are such a prized possession in our country. We are, and we have to make sure that we're taking care of our personal resources, our natural resources. We have to look at that as part of our governance too. We have to look at how are we facilitating home ownership? How are we facilitating gardens in our homes? What are we doing, and what's important to us when we know that? I was talking to my uncle for our family reunion, and he was talking about how many of the foods from the U.S. are just banned in the UK. Banned because of the amount of toxins and poisons and processing and additives that are in our food.
We talking about pancake mix.
I mean, it's
he was talking about just
right
pancake mix. That the same company that produces the pancake mix here produces it over there to what they have said specifically.
Right, their standards.
And their standards that's set. So the same people that's producing the pancake mix here literally is producing a completely different pancake mix to follow the laws in Great Britain.
Yeah. So
as a people,
what are we saying?
What are we saying, right? Because this is what they demanded. Now, I just saw yesterday or day before that a senator who's been in office for so many years is trying to get them to move the food away from the FDA and create a completely different industry with different laws around the food for healthier Americans. Because she was saying that the FDA shouldn't be handling the food. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but how are we handling the food?
How are we handling it, right? Because we're allowing it to be dictated to us. That's what I was saying, even about education, even about parenting, the whole nine. The kids are dictating to the parents. The parents are no longer dictating to the kids, because the parents have brokenness and they have all these other things that could go along with being a parent. So they'd rather be a friend than a parent, right? And then allowing them to grow. And that's not the case for all of us, right? But they rather be a friend, right? You ain't got to be my friend. Just grow up to be a good, human being. That's the job. Mm-hmm. But and the other part of that is the parents give, right? And we give to the kids these constant things, well marketed things, and just for them to say, "Oh, thanks," right? "Oh man, I love you," and then they take the little gift as soon as they got it. They got so much of it, they throw it to the side. It's not even a factor, because it's not what I really wanted, right? And so it's not really a factor. So as consumers, right, and you see people are changing to healthier diets, vegan, right? People are changing and moving away from the system. And that's a very good thing. But the other part of that is now you got to govern what is healthy, because the system will see that you are doing healthy things, and now they want to and they want to shut it down. Not only that, they'll put bad products like almond milk, right? So here come almond milk. Almond milk is supposed to be good for you, but almond milk is terrible. And it's telling you that on the right. So it comes back to what we were talking about reading, governance, right? Understanding that you, as a parent, you have to read, you have to articulate, you have to know the definitions. And this is where parenting, this is just one of the areas that parenting has to improve, is governance.
Mm-hmm. Because the parents are the teachers. Whether you're intentionally sitting down and educating your children, they're learning from you nonetheless. What you say, what you do, how you do it, how you respond, that's where they're really learning. That's where our acceptable culture comes from, is what our children see and what we continue to perpetuate in our homes and our thoughts and our own behavior and our words. We have to be mindful of the words that we are using.
Yeah, they don't want to. That's the thing. We need to come on here, come on here and just start talking about. You want to see people really get involved, right? That means reducing what you do. This is what I was talking about. When you are producing the types of information that we produce, right, it's hard for people to really take in that information. But if you come on here and you start talking about rats and thoughts and silly shit, right, they pop in, because new information is hard to take, because our conversation, this conversation alone is a town hall, right? The politics itself, but that means I have to be accountable. And what we have made and what we have done is we've created a considerable amount of unaccountability, right? And because we have that, this is why you have the politics speaking unaccountability, right? Because who governs, who cares, who wasn't it? Everybody is under this mindset of unaccountability. And I can make this decision if I want to. So you have that. So seeing the work that we do and seeing the information that you're even sharing right now, this is why we have to grab it, put it in clips, right? Because it's amazing how many people, they don't read them, or they don't do no research. I saw a video, right, and this is supposed to be true, and I was telling you earlier, I was like, that's dangerous. So I'll show you this video, and it
credible
says
source,
right, credible source, right, mm-hmm. And it says that such and such incarcerated 1,000 men. They were talking about it in 2020, and all these over 20,000 black men was incarcerated. Then when you go and really do the research and you look up the program, it was actually a dope ass program that was helping men not go into the system. And it was only because she had a database of 20,000 people. But we don't go look. We just let somebody else dictate to us, which now I don't know nothing. This is why the guy shows up and interview. We saw a clip where the interview was going down, and the guy said, this is a real clip. The guy says, 4 weeks after a child is born, you're still able to abort. And he got on the head that Make America Great Head again. This is what abortion is doing now, is that 4 weeks in California, really. So you're telling me that after a child is born, 4 weeks, that, yeah, so where did you hear that at? Well, I heard it somewhere. Like, I done seen it, a few times. And so the wife reassures him by saying, yeah, to him, because she got her hand in his back. He a puppet, so he can't think for himself. So she put her hand in his back, and she said, yeah, we seen it a few areas. He said, yeah, we seen it in a few areas. He said, sir, that's murder. You're going to jail if you kill a child after 4 weeks of being born. Where are you guys getting this stuff? That's murder, sir. Well, that's what the other side, that's what the liberals, that's what, man, I said, that's dangerous. Because that's what has been dictated to him. He believes it. No self-governance.
Right. Credible sources for information.
And
so that's one of the reasons. So when we talk about research, we're not talking about YouTube videos. We're not talking about, messages that come across Facebook or TikTok. That's not the source when we talk about research. We go to credible sources. We go to organizations, established institutions. We go to research sites. We go to, and it's secondary research. It's what somebody else has already done, but we take and we use a number of sources, not just one for the information, but a number of sources to confirm the same information. Fact check. We do a lot of fact checks, and we're not 100% accurate, but at least we put the effort into fact checking before we try to bring it out to the public. That's really important.
Yeah.
For us, that's part of our self-governance so that we don't continue to put misinformation in the process, in the system, in people's hands and in their thoughts and their minds.
Well, Cal said.
Right. Yeah. Because it does. It always comes back. You get that sound bite, that video clip. Well, here it is right here where he said. Yeah. So we really try to do our due diligence in terms of sharing information when we are meeting on us Put Your Family First podcast. That's really important to us. And it's important that it's not just opinions that we're bringing to the table. It is rooted in something real. It's rooted in how we find solutions. This is not just about sharing all the problems and all the issues. This is how do we come up with solutions? And so today we're closing with these are solutions. These are solutions. 1, refine and redefine your family values. Define and refine your personal values. What do you believe? What are you willing to stand up for, fight for? What are you willing to put your time and effort and energy behind? Those are the things that are going to catapult individuals and families to the next level. That's how we invest in our future. That's how we invest in our present. But it also is what helps us to make those important decisions, because it's something to make the important decisions on. So even if you had a gun and I had a gun, and it came down to us having this altercation, my values may value life and extending not just my own, but yours. So that means I'm going to try to come up with other ways to negotiate our differences. Violence is final. It's defined. It's set to be final. You can't take that back. It's not like on TV where you see somebody in the next exciting episode. It's not. That is not life. And I think we have somewhere started to believe that life is imitating art versus art imitating life.
Well, self-hate played a significant role in setting street rules and understanding these things, right? I hate you so much that I'm willing to set a rule that says if you pull this gun, you have to use it. So we establish those types of things, right? This is if you owe me, you don't pay me my money back, I got to take your life for $60. Because the street rule said, if somebody owe you, right? This is why I had a problem with the Scarface shirt, right? Scarface was the dumbest drug dealer in America, in the world, right? In movies, history, right? And somehow ignorance bought into Scarface and they got it on their shirts, the whole nine. And so since that movie, you've seen an uptick of unnecessary violence, right? You moves made in the dope game where unnecessary violence was created. Now it's passed down, it's in the DNA code, and unnecessary violence is now in the hands of children. Then we
our
feed
solutions.
And our right. So you have to remove these standards as normal standards for the culture. That means the culture has to buy in to a new standard. Right? And that standard is governed by men in fatherhood, because we were the ones who set the standard of failure. So we have to be the ones to set the standard of solutions. And why this conversation governance of self is because the father offers the discipline, which is why I champion fatherhood so much. Beyond the essence, when the father says no, is different. No, it's completely different. And so we have to really understand that that's why you hear me preaching about getting back to order.
Which is another form of solution.
Which is another form of solution, right, where you have order. And once you establish order, right, you have these things. But today what has happened is men are seen as opportunities. This is why the culture has the highest divorce rate in America. We're not seen as value. We're seen as an opportunity. So the black woman has the highest divorce rate in the world, in America. Right? Because of the way we have seen things and how we not valued the process. And it's the same for the men, but it's because we've created and procreated and so much. So we have to procreate in love and understanding and God and peace. Right? We have to procreate our families in a marriage, however you want to see marriage. Not necessarily that you have to put it on paper, but it's important that you put it on paper, because putting it on paper means you don't have to go into a court system for somebody to tell you what to do after your loved one has passed on, right? So putting it on paper also gives you a different governance, because this country puts everything on paper. So those are the things that is really, really, truly, when we talk about solutions, and I guess this is my point right here, when we talk about our Reading is Life campaign that we're going to launch here soon, but we're going to end today with a book, right? A book that was written. A book that we've read, right? I'll choose the book, and you can add on to some more solutions. We got a few minutes, but when we get that, we're going to share a book that everyone should read.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love to do. And, we spend a lot of time with our research. We spend a lot of time with our development and building our organizations and building our businesses, but also making time to just read, even if you just do it 30 minutes a day. And I when I had my big purse, which I've retired it since, but I always had a book with me. When I go to the market, you're in line, especially if it's long lines, you can get 10 minutes of or 2 pages of a book read by that time. Or if you're waiting for somebody, you're waiting for your kids to get out of school, you're waiting for, whatever errands you might have to run, it's another opportunity to use that time. So it's good time in the bathroom. Sometimes you have up to 30 minutes, especially as parents, you need that extra time alone. But that's another way to use that time and use it constructively. When you wake up in the morning, when you go to bed at night, those are also great times to take a minute for yourself and read. So I appreciate you sharing that sentiment, Calvin, and the book. So I just had a book though. I'm one of the new books I'm reading is Extreme Self-Awareness by Michael Okoye, the football player that was at the event last week.
Okoye.
Yeah. He has a book called Extreme Self-Awareness. I'm halfway through that book. It's very dynamic. And I just got a book today from Dr. Sabrina that my son is not a statistic. And it's 12 laws for single motherhood. So I thought that was phenomenal. It was just very timely. And she gifted that book to me. We were having a conversation about it. So those are two books that right now are on my list of books that I'm reading. How about you? What books are you reading?
Well, I'm in the middle of a book called Traction, but the book I'm recommending today is How to Win Friends and Influence by Dale Carnegie. And people need to really get into this book because it will teach you other ways on how to be friends, right? With that being said, Heather, where can they reach you at?
You can reach me at yourinspiredjourney.com, yourinspiredjourney.com. And you can reach me by phone at 313-759-7855.
And so you can reach me at calvintmann.com. First of all, I'd like to give a shout out to all the other doctors.
Thriving 30.
The Thriving 30.
The Thriving 30.
And the people from all over the country that was in the room who all became doctors. And it was just very, very, so I want to give a shout out to Dr. Missy Johnson as well.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Missy.
For her efforts and
Dr. Lenora too.
And Dr. Lenora too, that was with her, that had so many things around her little cape. All right. She's been all over the world doing this work. So seeing people and valuing people in their humanitarianism is such a huge thing, and we're very proud to be a part of that. Yes. I want to say this. Go ahead.
Also, I want to also thank Angela Prince, who was a member of our board who nominated us for that humanitarian award and supported us through this whole process. I just want to say thank you, Angela Prince, not only for this particular honor, but what you do on a daily basis in education and investing in people's lives, and that your successful conference that you had this past week. So
yes. Mm-hmm. So self-governance is a very important thing, right? Sometimes it allows you to make quality decisions. Being able to self-govern means sometimes you got to be calm. You can't emotionally respond. You have to look at things and do things in a different way, right? Self-governance means remaining calm in a situation to keep control of a situation. I was thinking about the situation when my son and his son was in the car and how it was important for him to continue to talk him through the process, right? Instead of it being an emotional process, right? And emotion is a very dangerous thing because it comes with a number of triggers. And so we have to understand why it's so important to self-govern. We need to know why this is so important. And so I'm challenging everyone that's watching this and will see this. We're challenging you to govern better. Govern how your children go to school, how they're prepared to go to school, how your children and your families sit down and have meals, right? Take back your peace without the turn up in the middle of the day, right? And pretend that you're having all of these problems while creating more problems for your family. I think that's a very important piece for us to really focus on. The other thing is reach out to your neighbors. Get to know your neighbors. You don't have to have your neighbors come into your home. But talking to your neighbors over the fence allows for your neighbors to build relationships, so when you're not present, they can help govern what is taking place, right? And you got to understand that we have to be better people, and we have to self-govern. It is not about they. It is always about we. Remember that. It is your we that you must govern. That is your home, your children, your family, right? And you must be inclusive of parents who are not involved. You must be inclusive of parents trying to be involved, because we all must put our hands to the plow. Luke 9:62. Right? No one is fit, right, to get into the kingdom of heaven if you look back. Right? Once you put your hands on that plow of parenting, educating, being responsible, self-governing, that's one of the ways into the kingdom of heaven. For those that may believe, for those of you don't, you still have to self-govern to get the outcomes for your families and your children. Because each and every last, and yourself, because each and every last one of us, we have visions, and what we do to them is very, very important. With that being said, my name is Calvin Mann. This has been Put Your Family First podcast. God bless you and encourage me. I'm young. Peace.